Arsenal should and will build for the future?
No, because we've been building for the future for the last 8 years. You know, Wenger had 7 magnificent seasons and became one of the great managers in Arsenal history. But the stats don't lie. We've won nothing in 8 years. We don't have a single player in our current squad who's ever won a trophy for Arsenal. All 91 league teams now have changed their manager since we last won a trophy. Apart from Arsenal. Yeah. Apart from Arsenal, we're the only ones who haven't. There seems to be this belief that Wenger should just go on and on and on and will never win anything again. And I don't think this squad is any better than the one 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. We are competing to come 4th or 5th in the league and to scrape through into the Champions League, which we have zero chance of winning with this squad. We've become a selling club. You know, we sold Van Persie, we sold Fabregas, we sold Song, we sold Nasri. And then, you know, I compare it, as an Arsenal fan, to try and be fair, I compare it to Manchester United. Alex Ferguson won 10 more trophies since we last won one. He's got American owners, he's got debt problems he's had to deal with, he's lost top players like Ronaldo, Tevez and others, but he's managed to keep United as a winning club. And Wenger hasn't. And, you know, I love the guy. He's been brilliant for Arsenal. But there comes a point when you have to compare like with like and say, what the hell happened to us?
And Piers, I mean, to that desperate statistic you gave out about the changing of other managers, I'm sorry, as a Spurs fan, you might want to hear this, but I will add it. I'm sure you know as well. On Wednesday night, when José Benayoun got his medal in the Europa League, he became the 20th ex-Arsenal player to win a major medal. That's not just medals, but 20 different players since Arsenal last lifted a trophy. Would you be happy, Piers? What about if they kept up Arsene Wenger but went on a major transfer assault during the summer and brought in 4 top players? Would that assuage you?
Well, listen, you're talking about somebody who used to be able to find incredible stars out of nowhere. Thierry Henry, Patrick Vieira, etc., etc. But, you know, you've got to consider the fact in the last 18 months, Wenger has spent nearly £50 million on Andre Santos, one of the worst players I've ever seen in an Arsenal shirt, Mertesacker and Gervinho, pretty average players, Podolski, Giroud, pretty average forwards. And we sold the best striker in Europe, arguably, who went and won the league for Manchester United. Now, we sold Van Persie, or Van Perstrings as I prefer to call him, for £24 million. If we now miss out on the Champions League, that will cost us at least £25 to £30 million. No one can tell me this is good business. This is the kind of ruinous business that drives you into mid-table mediocrity. And people who think, oh, it's not Wenger's fault, it's the board, etc., it's just a total lack of understanding of what happens at Arsenal. Arsene Wenger rules with an iron rod over every single thing that happens there. I think it's no coincidence that since David Dein was forced out of the club 8 years ago, we haven't won a trophy. He and Wenger together were Lennon and McCartney, and apart, it's just not the same. Wenger is not the manager that the rose-tinted spectacle fans think he is anymore. And I think it's time for him and for us to have a change. Now, I've been saying this for the last 4 or 5 years. Not like I've suddenly switched to this view. No. And it will be very sad when he goes. But, you know, Ferguson won 10 trophies since we last won one. There's got to be a point when Arsenal, if we maintain a position in our heads of being a big club, we say, enough.
Piers, in that event, being a fan on one hand and wanting Arsenal to win, and I see you on Twitter, and I love the fact that you are a passionate Arsenal fan wherever you are. And when they score a goal, you celebrate, and when they struggle, you want to see them back on parity with the Manchester United and Manchester City. I understand that. Will there be a part of you that would actually quite like to see Arsenal not get into the top 4 to enhance the process of the board and their thinking? Or do you think that whatever happens tomorrow, Arsene Wenger, like you say, rules the place with an iron grip and he's not going anywhere in any event?
It's a tough question. I never want Arsenal to lose. I certainly don't want Spurs to come ahead of us. I worked out the best result tomorrow will be if we lose 14-0 and Spurs are 1-up, concede a 95th minute disputed penalty, draw 1-1, and we come 4th and they come 5th. That would be the most amusing scenario in history. However, it's a serious point. What would it take to change Arsene Wenger at Arsenal. You know, I personally think it would have been great for him if he'd gone to Paris Saint-Germain, who clearly are losing their manager, and gone home and had a great chance again with them, with lots of money and lots of players, and perhaps won trophies with them, and that would have been great for him. I think he's run his course with us. And listen, we have to qualify for the Champions League, because if we don't, then I think this summer the transfer business we can do without the Champions League is almost negligible. With it, maybe Wenger can suddenly go back to the old Arsene. Maybe he will change the habit of a lifetime and go and spend 30 million on a world-class player, go and take Gareth Bale from White Hart Lane. I would love that. Spend 40 million. I can name you 5 players I would sell tomorrow to finance it.
Who would you sell tomorrow? Who would you get rid of? And what kind of players?
If we could get Gareth Bale, I would personally get rid of Podolski, Giroud and Gervinho, because you're losing 3 average strikers for an absolute world beater. But if you look at the team that we've sold in the last 3 or 4 years, if we had just kept that team and added the likes of Jack Wilshere and Theo Walcott and a few of the really good players that we have, we would be challenging. The real problem is we've become a perennial selling club, isn't it? It's become a joke. Every summer we sell our captain. You know, it's like the only reason we're not doing that this year is Vermaelen can't get a game.
Very briefly,
otherwise, I'm sure that Ivan the Terrible would be, getting on the phone right now.
I've got something that's just tweeted here. Eve Fudge on Twitter says, Piers forgot to mention that we built our stadium over that time. Is that a red herring in terms of being able to kick on?
I think it's a total red herring, and I'll tell you why. Because, clubs like Chelsea and Manchester United, they've all had to rebuild parts of their
Bayern
stadium.
Munich built a stadium, they're about to win the Champions League, That's the
Well, exactly, and they charge, I think, for an annual season ticket what we charge for one game. Remember this, we have the highest tickets of any club in the country. We have the highest paid manager at £7 million a year in Arsene Wenger. He gets paid more than Alex Ferguson for 0 return in the last 8 years compared to 10 trophies. So when you do almost any statistical analysis, you're left with a kind of head-rubbing exercise. And I hear Arsenal fans all the time on Twitter. I have to say, a lot less than they used to be. But I hear what they say, and it's like, this man has earned our trust and respect and loyalty because for 8 years we beat everybody. I get that, and I get that argument. I just don't accept it anymore. I think there comes a point where you look at this squad and you say, is this squad, without some major injection of world-class talent, is this squad likely to win the league next year? No. Are Chelsea going to be stronger with Mourinho at the helm? Absolutely. Are Liverpool going to be stronger? I think they are. Is Moyes going to do a great job at United? Absolutely, and we should have had him as our manager 3-4 years ago when we probably had the chance to do that. Manchester City are clearly going to be stronger than they were this year and competing. We're just not going to be a top 4 club for much longer unless there is dramatic change. Now, I would go and get the Dortmund manager, Klopp, or I would persuade Heinkes, the outgoing Bayern Munich manager, to come. He's 4 years younger than Alex Ferguson. I would do something. I would look to where the really great football's being played, and right now it's in Germany, and I would say, one of you guys, let's pay whatever you want and come and reinvigorate Arsenal. You know what really depresses me? Go on. I've got Man United fans. Man United fans that I used to love having banter with and competing with, they don't even feel sorry for me anymore. They just ignore me. They'd rather talk to Man City fans or Chelsea fans or Real Madrid or Barcelona fans. We are irrelevant. We're no longer seen as a competitive big club, and it breaks my heart. And if I have to keep getting whacked for saying what I think is the bleeding obvious, that we need a new coach, a new manager, so be it, because eventually the penny will drop.
Here's the other person I know who you have tremendous amount of, it's like a very unhappily married couple, banter with on Twitter, is Gary Lineker. Gary's on in about an hour on the show. Any message for him on the eve of the big games tomorrow?
Well, you can ask him, actually, that last week we were both in Beverly Hills, funny enough, and he had to attend, because I invited him to this what I said was a cosy dinner, and it turned out to be an award I was receiving for the gun control campaign I run in America, and he had to, at one stage, give me a standing ovation, which he described later as the single worst moment of not only his life, but the life of his wife who was with him. So you can tease him about that. Now, listen, Gary and I, we have quite a lot of chats about Arsenal. I think if you really pushed him, he wouldn't be a million miles away from what I'm saying about Arsene Wenger.
Well, I will really push him then. I absolutely will.
I think a lot of top football people actually quietly believe this, but Wenger has great respect, and he's earned that respect, and people don't like to criticise. But I say, look at Alex Ferguson in the last 10 years, look at us, and you can do the maths.
Okay, listen, thank you very much indeed for joining us from the great city of New York. That's Piers Morgan there. Coming up next here on